I was in Northern California, started educating people all over Northern California, literally stood in front of thousands of people. And then the same gentleman shows up about 6 months later and goes, "Go national, young man." And so for the last 20 years have been educating people about the complexities of aging and care.
Welcome to the Ral Room Assisted Living Podcast with your hosts, Charlie Cameron and Alex Schlow. This is your go-to show for cutting-edge insights from industry leaders in residential assisted living.
Whether you're ready to launch your own assisted living business or looking to invest in this fast-growing, high-impact sector, we are here to equip you with the tools, strategies, and confidence you need to succeed. Get ready to ride the silver tsunami and change the future of senior care. Now on to today's show.
Welcome back to the Ral Room Assisted Living Podcast, the podcast that brings you expert insights from leaders in assisted living. And boy, do we have a leader in the industry today. I'm your host, Charlie Cameron. Today, I'm thrilled to have Richard Wexler on the call. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you. Great to be here, Charlie.
For the listeners, if you've never heard of A Plan to Age, you must be living under a rock, because it's perhaps the preeminent education platform for teaching families how to prepare for loved ones entering into the assisted living phase of their lives. And if that's already happened, then how to handle what is very often a crisis that people have not prepared for when a family member, mom, dad, does need to go into assisted living. So this is going to be a little bit different of an episode. You know, normally we talk through the operations of homes or the marketing of homes, but today we're going to look at this more of a, how do we prepare just personally, and then how does that really tailor to the industry of residential assisted living? So with that, Richard, I think what we want to do is really understand how you got into assisted living, because you spent most of your career not, maybe eventually most will be in assisted living, but most of it was not in assisted living. So tell us a little bit about how you went from that to being a huge educator in this space.
So 20 years ago, I'm working in the software industry, told the story a lot, minding my own business. I had gotten married later. We had two small children, 11 and 7. And between my wife and myself, we had all four parents with us, and we really thought they were doing well. So we were going about our life, and then all of a sudden in the summer of 2005, the phone started ringing and ringing as we found out that each one of them was doing very poorly. So our life changed pretty quickly. We had no idea what we were doing. We had never planned to have one, let alone four parents exceptionally ill, have the careers, the two children. So we jumped on this care train, not even knowing what we were doing, how long that was going to last. So we wound up caring for all four parents for 14 years. It was an amazing ride. We tried to keep our life as normal as possible. We really, as I said, had no idea what we were doing, how we were going to care for them. So probably 6 months into it, left what I was doing in software, realized I could barely spell the word care, started my first company, Points of Life, and started reading everything. Google was a lot different back then. And probably 6 months into that, a gentleman shows up at my office and says, "Have you learned anything?" And I said, "I hope." And he goes, "You're an attorney by training. You're good on your feet. Get out there and start educating people about what it means to age and need care." And I gulped, and I did. So I was in Northern California at that time, started educating people all over Northern California, literally stood in front of thousands of people. And then the same gentleman shows up about 6 months later and goes, go national, young man. So I gulped again. And so for the last 20 years have been educating people about the complexities of aging and care.
Wow. That's I love that story. And I know you told that story to Alex, so I really wanted to repeat it here for the listeners. But yeah, if you didn't catch that, Richard was taking care of all four parents, right? And for 14 years. And so was thrown into crisis mode for assisted living, not having prepared for it. So what I'd love to do, Richard, is talk through, let's pretend, okay, my parents are 70 or nearing their 70s, and they're, God bless us, they're doing well, they're healthy. They're right now in Petra, hiking around and checking out some cool stuff in Egypt. But with the days of assisted living come for everyone at some point. What should someone like me be thinking about, just looking at it from the other side of the coin, not the operator side, but hey, I'm a family member with parents who are aging. What does it look like when people go to a plan to age and start doing some planning with you?
Sure. So I'm right in that age group with your parents. I'm 72. So something we talk about a lot, something I've obviously learned a lot over these last 20 years. As you said, most of what we dealt with was in crisis. We had no plan. The first thing I would ask you or any adult child, do you have siblings? And if the answer is yes, I would have you reach out to your siblings to start discussing this. Right now, especially, we just passed Thanksgiving. Christmas is coming up. Not sure when this episode will air. A lot of adult children go home for the holidays and go, wow, mom's changed. Dad's walking differently. Wow, mom's calling me by my brother's name. You start seeing things that are happening to their mood, to their movement, to their cognition. We actually, within a plan to age, which is a plan to age, the number 2.org, we have a checklist that people can look at to help them understand what they should be looking at with mom and dad when they see them for the holidays. But let's say you're not even seeing them. And if you don't have siblings, then you yourself understanding, I really need to have a conversation with them. If you have siblings, determining which brother or sister is the best individual. Is it the oldest? Is it the youngest? Which one has the best relationship with mom or dad? To have what we call the family conversation, something I've been talking about for many years. It's a tough conversation to start. The thing I tell people, don't call mom, don't call dad and say, Mom, we got to talk. You're going to put her on the defensive. Well, when an adult child calls and says, I don't care if that adult child is 70 and mom or dad are in their 90s, which we're seeing today, you want to call and ask for advice. You want to call and let mom understand you need some help. Part of that advice or help, you want to understand as they age, where do they want to live? And you know this, Charlie, most people are going to say, right here at home. I'm going to die with my boots on at home. But is that realistic? And then that can take you into further conversations. And the second important question, Mom, Dad, if you were to ever need care, who do you want to care for you? And those two simple questions can really help start the conversation.
I love that, Richard. And I'm a weird only child, so I have a lot to figure out, it seems like, with myself. I'll sit down and have a conversation. But I'm curious as to how do you guide the conversation around mom or dad moving into a family member's home or staying in their home and bringing in care, or going into assisted living or residential style assisted living?
And this can be extremely difficult because you probably are going to get that answer that, hey, Dad and I are going to stay here. We lived in this house for 30 years. We're going to die here. Charlie, leave us alone. We run into a lot of pitfalls like that. And what I tell people, this is not going to be one conversation. It's going to be multiple, and it needs to build. And maybe you hit that wall in the initial conversation, but then, and maybe you're going to see them in person, and maybe you have this in person. One recommendation, if you're doing it over the phone, the old fashioned way, I would recommend doing it on Zoom if they can utilize that, doing it on FaceTime so you can at least see their reactions. But you know this as well. You start talking in a further conversation with mom and dad, and maybe you're talking about just the physical nature of the house. Mom, I grew up here. We have 5 bedrooms. It's 2 stories. There's a small bathroom on the first floor, but all the living's upstairs. God forbid you or dad were to fall. It'd be really difficult to climb the stairs. I'm not telling you need to move someplace else, but climbing those stairs could be really difficult. But then again, and you understand this, the reply that they have, maybe we'll just bring someone in the home. And the way individuals want to address that, if you come to our site, you can see what in-home care costs. You can see what living in a community costs. You want to arm yourself with that information before you speak with mom and dad, because part of this conversation as it blossoms is their financial nature, a very difficult part of the conversation. Do they have the funds to bring someone in? What if they were to need someone 24 hours a day? It would be a lot less to have them in a beautiful assisted living. Or is this a situation, I'm not picking on you, Charlie, but does an adult child either need to move in with mom and dad, or do mom and dad or one of them need to move in with that adult child?
Yeah, this is really good, Richard, because I think the listeners are thinking of this like, how do I have this conversation with the families, right, and of the potential residents, right?
Yep.
And what does that look like? And I think one of the big things that makes so much sense about residential assisted living, we're talking maybe the national median for assisted living is somewhere around 5,000. Of course, it varies a lot by state and location and urban and services provided. If you were to have 24/7 in-home care, bring that care into your home, and most of those agencies aren't going to charge less than, let's say, $30 an hour. That's 20 grand a month. And you're right, that's like unobtainium. That's really expensive. And so it is a good kind of way to help guide that conversation of, well, we could potentially look at an assisted living home where there is only one story, and you'll be a lot safer, and you'll have a community, and you'll be cared for on a high caregiver ratio. And I'm sure that's not what most of them want to hear. And I'm sure that's not what my parents want to hear either. But it is a conversation that has to be had. So speaking on the money piece, guide us a little more on what that looks like. How do you have that conversation with family members and with siblings on how that's going to be covered? And what does that normally shake out to be? Like, where does most of the funding come from?
Sure. So again, part of having this conversation with siblings, and I recommend what I said before, you recommend to your siblings a plan to age. They take a look at the site. The numbers, we use 5,000 with care on top of that as the average cost for an assisted living around the country. We use about 40 on average per hour for care in the home. You want your siblings to understand those numbers. Most likely, you have 3, 4, 5 siblings. No one's ever had a conversation with mom and dad about money. In my age bracket, 70s and above.
Running a residential memory care home is not just a calling, it's a maze of licensure, paperwork, zoning regulations, and day to day challenges that can feel overwhelming. That's why so many successful operators partner with Legato Living franchise. Legato Living does more than just help you open a home. They help you open it the right way so you can stay focused on what matters, providing exceptional care to those living with dementia. And once your doors are open, it can get lonely at the top. As a Legato Living franchisee, you are never on your own. Legato Living offers ongoing operational support from staff training and owner conferences to systems, cultures, and quality assurance because a home is only as good as its operator, and great operators deserve a great partner. If you're ready to open a residential memory care home that truly makes a difference, visit Legato Living and start with confidence today.
There was a wall. You never talked about, you never asked Dad, what did you pay for the house? How much is the mortgage? Oh, Dad, by the way, how much do you make on your job? That was something you never talked about. But when you're talking about the need for care, it's a realistic conversation because it has to be paid for. So having the siblings understand this, and then also with you, Charlie, one person, but having the siblings understand if they really want to stay at home and they're not going to move, if they will move to an assisted living, how are we coming up with that number? When we find out how much they do have, maybe they're willing to sell the home that has a lot of equity and use that to offset the cost of moving to an assisted living. If they're going to stay there and their heels are really dug in, there's a lot of things they can look about. Obviously, the first thing is what's in their piggy bank? What have they saved? They can do items like a reverse mortgage. If they have a life insurance policy, a lot of people that become 70, 80 plus can do a life insurance settlement and actually get a cash value for that policy. We taught a class a couple months ago over 13 different ways to pay for care. That's on our site as well, a plan to age. But you need to have an understanding of what mom and dad look like from a financial situation.
I love that. And I'm going to go look at that 13 ways to pay as well. It is a big concern that a lot of our mastermind members have, and people who are interested in getting into assisted living, especially when we have our free webinars where we show people what are the steps to get started, what do the financials look like. And we hold that every other week. And man, one of the most common questions or concerns, I guess, is no, people aren't going to be able to afford this. And mom and dad have to be cared for one way or another. And so you have your options. We're laying them out here. Certainly, residential assisted living is way less expensive than in-home care. We're also talking about the wealthiest generation, which is now aging into assisted living over the next decade or so. And so I think, and a lot of their wealth comes from real estate. Shocking, right? Most wealthy people own real estate. And so I think the ways to pay are there, but we have to just get smarter about it and plan for it. And I don't think it'll be as big of a problem with the boomer generation, but I do think after that, eventually, it'll be harder and harder because people aren't thinking ahead. Luckily, most of that generation has a lot of wealth. They have the propensity of wealth, actually. But yeah, I do think, of course, you have to have the conversations. You can't just be like, all right, ready, go.
Yeah.
And a reverse mortgage, I'm glad you brought that up because we've always been taught, no, don't reverse mortgage. No, that's a scam. It's not necessarily. It's really built exactly for this purpose. It's for older homeowners who have a lot of equity that now need to use that equity for something like this, right? Especially if they're not going to be living in the home anymore. What else? That equity's not doing anything. So I think that is a good option for a lot of families to consider, which it sounds weird hearing myself say that, but I think it does make a lot of sense. Would you agree?
if I can add something, most people don't understand this. They usually want you to, if you're going to use the money from a reverse mortgage, they want you to stay in the home. So mom and dad are getting care in the home. They're using the money from a reverse mortgage to pay for it. But there's a huge but. So now dad has progressed from a cognitive perspective where he needs to move to a memory care community. Mom can stay at home. That money, as long as mom is at home, could, let's say she doesn't need care, but there's obviously quite a bill for dad within the memory care community. That money can be used to offset his cost because mom's still at home. So I really encourage people, work with professionals, work with your financial planner, work with your estate planner, work with your attorney, work with people, your lender, work with people that understand this so you're getting the appropriate information.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, Richard, let's say I get a phone call, God forbid, and all of a sudden somebody, a parent, an in-law, somebody needs to go into care or have care. Now we're in crisis mode. How do you address that at a plan to age? What are my first actions? I don't know where I'm going to put mom or dad. Are they coming home with me? Are we going to a assisted living? This is a problem. They're getting discharged, and now what?
First thing I would recommend, we set the site up understanding a lot of people would plan, but unfortunately most people are going to deal with this in crisis. So I would really recommend go to the site, pull up the crisis piece, start understanding what you and I are talking about. So you get the call or you get the text these days, mom's in the ER. They think she broke something. It's probably her hip. You don't even know how serious that is. And I'm trying to explain to people, yeah, mom may be fine in 6 months, 8 months, whatever time, or mom, this could take mom because there's a lot of physical therapy that's needed to get back to where she was. And as you get older, that can be difficult. And mom may resist it, and that can turn into other health problems. Go to the site, start looking at what you and I are talking about. If they have to bring someone in the home, what does that look like? If they have to move, if they're going to move mom and she's agreeable, once she probably gets through surgery, goes to skilled nursing for a month or so to learn to move from her wheelchair to her walker to be able to get around, what is that going to look like? But also what we wanted to do, and you guys are going to be part of this, we wanted to make sure we have within the site a lot of resources you can work with if you're planning, and resources you can work with on a national basis if you find yourself in crisis.
That's awesome. And I love how the website is laid out in such a way that you pick planning or now in crisis. Then when you get to crisis, it's, are they in the ER? Are they being discharged? Are they no longer able to live at home? So it's very well organized, for basically scenario based, which I love. And I want to go back to the care plan template. This is awesome. I just was kind of looking at that a little bit. I might print this off for when mom and dad come over for Christmas. Something to discuss. So that'll be an interesting conversation, Richard. I'll have to let you know how that goes.
The care plan you're talking about, once we have this family conversation, we really encourage people. Okay, you've talked to mom and dad 3 or 4 times. You've gotten them to a point where they're going to answer questions. You can literally go online like you're looking at and fill out a care plan. There's a lot of subject matter you're going to go through, from the financial to the legal to the care to all of it. And then once you fill it out, you can download it and you can actually hang on to it. And then in a estate plan, maybe mom and dad are doing okay and don't need a lot of help yet. But as things change within the family unit, you can go back to that care plan and update it.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So, Richard, if someone wanted to hear you speak, what kind of events would they go to?
So, not doing that many things in person now like I used to do, but we're doing a lot of things online. We conduct each quarter, there'll be another one coming up, the first part in 26, a national conversation on aging and care. And that's when we're giving out a lot of this information. We have professionals, potentially like you guys, on these calls. That last call was the one that we talked about these 13 different ways to pay for care. So a lot of what I think about and look at as we're trying to develop what the curriculum's going to be for a given call, what did we go through those 14 years? What was it like in the beginning? Kind of like you said, someone falls, someone has an unfortunate stroke. What do we do now? Who do we call? Who's going to help? What I always recommend for people, going back to that conversation, especially if it's an only child like yourself, and maybe you're struggling, there are a lot of people out there that you can work with, like care managers. They can almost hold your hand over the internet and help you have that conversation with mom and dad because they're trained in this. I also encourage people, talk to a pastor, talk to a priest, talk to your rabbi. You can utilize someone like that to give you and potentially be on these calls with you, to counsel you, but also to potentially be there with you, because as we talked about 20 plus minutes ago, these conversations can be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I wanted to talk to a care manager, where would I go?
So they're actually on our website. You can find that. They're listed there. I don't have the inner number in front of me, but their number is listed within our website. You can call, you can get referred to a care manager in the locale that you're talking about.
Nice. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Richard, this has been fun. This has been very different, very interesting from a different perspective, a different side of the coin for assisted living, which is so important. It's definitely got me thinking. I'll be having some conversations, I think, with family members here. If people want to learn more about a plan to age or they're currently in crisis, I know we said the website, is that the best place to go?
That's the best place. They can also get a hold of me. There's an info@aplantoage.org email. That'll come directly to my desk. But aplantoage.org, just remember there's the number 2. aplantoage.org. And as you said, we tried to lay it out so it's pretty simple to navigate, hopefully give people a lot of information. We update it weekly. And as we discover even more and more items to help people, we'll make sure it's listed there.
I love that. And there is so many resources on here, so many blog posts. I love it. Definitely looking forward to the next event. We'll certainly promote that in our Facebook communities and on the mastermind. We would love to attend that. And Richard, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and everything you know about the industry and how we can be thinking smartly and planning for senior care for our loved ones.
Thank you, Charlie. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Rail Room Assisted Living Podcast. We hope you found today's episode insightful. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a raving 5-star review. And a quick review helps more listeners find the show and more seniors get the exceptional care they deserve.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And just so you know, we have prepared some free resources for you to help you succeed in residential assisted living in addition to this podcast. Head over to theralroom.com, that is TheRAL room.com, to download our free 10-step guide to launch your first or next residential assisted living home, or our 10 reasons to passively invest in residential assisted living ebooks.
And if you're ready to take the next step and make real moves in the RAL industry, join us in the RAL Room Mastermind. It is an exclusive community where we deep dive into everything you need to launch and grow your own residential assisted living business. You'll get access to recorded courses, live calls with industry experts, a RAL calculator, resources and tools, like-minded entrepreneurs, funding opportunities, and an expert networking community to help you along your journey.
Be sure to join us next time on the RAL Room podcast as we continue to explore the world of residential assisted living with more great guests. See you then.